Alright, so the last video I showed you guys how to make three different size cylinders, the same amount of clay. So you got the short wide cylinder, medium, a little bit wider cylinder, and then the tall narrow one. Now based on that exercise, for this video you should be able to now make a set of a plate, a bowl, and a cup. So here is kind of what you are leading up to. So if you were able to get pretty decent at making those three different size cylinders, you should now be able to attempt making one of these. So you got a plate, a bowl, and a tumbler, which is a cup without a handle. So I'm gonna show you guys how to do that. So I'll start with the cup. So here I got about 2 pounds of clay. Go ahead and start making this. So centering. At this point, I think centering should be getting a little bit easier and faster to do. So that's my centered amount of clay. So I'm making the tumbler first. So this one's gonna be narrow and tall. There's my well. Now the pulling. So slow down the wheel when you're ready to pull. Make sure you add water. There's the first pull. Before doing the next pull, I'll go on the inside and make that edge. I'll go now with my knuckle and do my next pull. There's 2 pulls now. Do one more. So again, to get it tall and narrow, I put a little bit more pressure on the outside. Very little pressure on the inside. It's able to give me the height that I need. Off. And I'm gonna strain this out with my rib. Now a couple of ways to go about this. So you could start with the straight cylinder and then shape it using your ribs to give it whatever shape you want. So I'll do this. So I'll kind of maybe narrow down the bottom. I'm going to slow down the wheel, and then with this rib I'm going to use it to make like this indentation at the bottom. Again, you could play around with the form. You don't necessarily have to do this, but feel free to play around with it. Now with the rib, I'm just sort of shaping the top area, kind of making it rounded, almost like a goblet. The idea of the tumbler is that you should be able to grab it with your hand comfortably. Okay, so now that's like my shape. Just cutting off this excess skirt. extra water on the inside. Just kind of finish shaping it with the rib. Now the other thing I like to do with cups, mugs, is for the top I like to bevel it. So like I'll grab a rib, and with that rib I'll make this angle, just so that it's more comfortable to drink out of and you won't really dribble. Clean it up with your sponge, and there's my cup, my tumbler. It's about 6 inches tall. It should fit about maybe 14 ounces of liquid. All right, now the bowl. Again, about 2 pounds of clay. Open up my well. Now for the bowl, I pretty much try to keep the inside looking like a bowl shape from the beginning. That way it's easier to shape. And as I pull, so I'm gonna start making my pull. I already start shaping it into a bowl. So I'm pulling and shaping the bowl. So it's like, you know, squeeze the clay from the bottom, pull. Pretty much when I'm pulling, you know, I'm pulling outwards to get the bowl shape. Squeeze the clay from the bottom. Again, as you pull, instead of pulling straight up like you would a cylinder, you're gonna pull towards the outside to get it wide as it's getting tall. Try to do one more pull. Now for the bowl, I do like to leave some thickness at the top. Alright, so there's like my bowl shape. Let me adjust the camera so you can see more of the inside. So now the inside is not a perfect bowl shape, so I'm gonna grab my rib, and with the rib I'm gonna shape the inside. All I'm doing is pushing from the inside, and right now I don't really mind what's going on the outside. I could later trim it. I just want the inside part to be, you know, a nice bowl shape. So the small rib, you know, gives me a pretty nice curve. Once I'm happy with the way it looks, I'll just round off my lip. There's my bowl. It's a nice cereal bowl. All right, now the plate. All right, so for the plate, I have a little bit more clay. It's about 2.5 pounds. Work on centering that. All right, so now as you're centering, you want to, you know, flatten out a cake of clay. So most of the work is happening from your right hand. Okay, so now it's flatter. Now instead of kind of start with the opening at the very middle, what I like to do is I like to sort of like open it into a bowl shape kind of. So I'm using this part of my hand to give it a very shallow curve on the inside, and it sort of pushes out the clay towards the outside, so I'm able to pull it. Again, I don't have to start with the small well and open it from that. I'm just sort of making the shallow bowl shape and then kind of pushing out the clay with this part of my hand. Eventually I'll just go over with my sponge to make the bottom nice and flat. And for a plate, make sure you actually leave the bottom kind of thick, especially if you're gonna trim it. If your bottom is too thin, there's a possibility that you get an S crack. So you want to compress the bottom really well. So I just did with the sponge, and then I'll go over with this rib to make the bottom nice and flat. And with that rib, using the edge, I'm kind of pushing out the clay. You can see kind of how all the extra clay has moved to the sides. I'll be able to pull it. Alright, so I'll slow down the wheel. Now to pull it, I'm gonna get my sponge and get underneath. See how that lifted up that bit of clay? And I'm just doing about 1 or 2 really small pulls. I actually want to leave the rim kind of thick. You don't want to make it too thin. So I'll do one more little pull. Round off that edge. Now you can see how you sort of have a shallow bowl now. I'm gonna go over with my rib. To again flatten out the bottom and create sort of like that ridge that separates the bottom of the plate and the rim. All right, so now that I have that, I'm gonna use my rib, the flat side of the rib, put it against the edge of the rim, and with the rib I'm gonna push down slightly, slowly and gently, to start making the rim of my plate. See, it's just like very gentle push, and I'm not pushing it down all the way. I do want it to sort of like be angled up a bit, slightly. And for that reason, you want to leave a bit of a thick rim, because if this was too thin, when I was pushing it, it would collapse. So when you leave it thicker, it will actually hold. So now I'm just cleaning it up. And there it is. There's my plate. So again, a little bit more clay than the bowl and the cup, because again you want to have plenty of clay at the bottom so you could trim later on. Okay, there's my plate. My bowl and my cup. So again, give it a try, practice, play around with the shapes, so you're not making a straight cylinder anymore. Now you're playing around with the shape, and see what you can make. Playing around with shapes and designs, make something nice and creative that you're gonna like. And yeah, just give it a go and practice. Good luck, guys.